As we move along the journey of intellectual enrichment, may I now call upon stage our esteemed panelists for a discussion on Pakistan with the theme, The Turmoil in Pakistan and Impact on India. A conversation with Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, Vayu Sena Medal, Mr. Tilak Devasher, Captain Alok Bansal, Indian Navy, and Dr. Shalini Chawla. The conversation will be moderated by Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur. A former Air Force officer with 36 years of service, he has been an experimental test pilot trained in France and a graduate of Air Command and Staff College, USA. I now hand over the stage to Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur for further proceedings.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Jai Hind, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for calling all of us here. Since we are short of time and we are, just short of lunch, so I'll just get onto the topic straight away. But before we go to the experts seated left and right of me, let me lay out the broad format of the issues we are looking at. That Pakistan is in turmoil would be stating the obvious, and in turmoil due to three basic things: political issues, its own security, and the way it is interacting with the world. So the ongoing upheaval in its political structure, an upcoming election just 5 days from now, would it be credible with the crackdown on Imran Khan and his party? The economic turbulence. Just before climbing the stage, I checked on the Pakistani rupee. It is 276.99 to a US dollar. It may have changed by now. So there is an economic upheaval that is happening around there. Then we have the issue of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and what Pakistan thought would happen once the Taliban came into Afghanistan. Its hopes seem to be getting dashed a little bit. Then there are the external dynamics of Pakistan with Saudi, with the UAE, the US, China, and the other Gulf countries. So looking at all these, our three experts here with us. We have Dr. Shalini Chawla, distinguished fellow at Center for Air Power Studies, and an old colleague of mine. A scholar on Pakistan, has written books, you see her on television, and articles appear in the press. And just the other day, actually 2 days back, she was in Kathmandu for a conference. 5 days she was there on counter-terrorism. So maybe she can enlighten us a little bit on what was the interaction with South Asian scholars. Mr. Tilak Devasher on the right, he was the Special Secretary in the Cabinet Secretariat, so you know what that means. And a member of the National Security Advisory Board. He's written books just 3 years back. His very articulate piece on Iran and Pakistan came in the Indian Express. And just as an aside, though very important, his father was the SASO, Western Air Command, in the 1971 war. So his interaction goes back with the forge so far back. And then Captain Alok Bansal on my left, an old colleague of mine from DSSC, a director at India Foundation, and you see him very often on television, and his pieces and opinion pieces appear. So without much ado, may I now request Captain Bansal, Alok. Since we are short of time, we have sort of regulated ourselves, and the way we'll go is each speaker would talk on certain topics that we've sort of talked about earlier. Alok, would you like to take on the political environment in Pakistan? Roughly 7 minutes each.
I think what Chair mandated was that we should split the subjects, and I was told to speak on the internal situation. And just before, as I was coming, I was discussing with former Foreign Secretary Mr. Gokhale when Ajay said that Pakistan is in turmoil on the verge of implosion. And we agreed that if you would have read the editorials in Dawn or the News in 1950s, that would have said the same. The fact of the matter is that Pakistan has been imploding for almost over 7 decades. It's been on the verge of, and I can tell you, I'm not fabricating it. If you just go back and see the library and see the editorials that emerged in Dawn in 50s, they said the same thing. This is not to reduce the gravity of the situation in Pakistan, where you have an election in 5 days, you are not sure whether the elections will take place or not. There are military proxies which are running the government, taking policy decisions which they are not supposed to. They were supposed to govern for 3 months. They have exceeded their term. They have pushed out Afghan nationals, millions of them. They have just taken a decision that Pakistan International Airlines will be privatized by breaking it into 2. For the first time, they have taken a decision that the retailers would be paying GST, which has been a very, very big sticking point. So obviously, somebody is backing the caretaker administration to do the needful. The Election Commission of Pakistan, which has been violating every statute in the constitution, it was supposed to conduct elections in assemblies within 90 days. More than 2 or 3 times the tenure time has actually elapsed, and the ECP doesn't want to do that, which has actually denied one of the major political parties an election symbol. Now, the implications we need to understand. If PTI, which undoubtedly is still the most popular party, why we don't have the time, we could probably take it in Q&A, continues to be the thing. But the point is, if the members get elected as independents, the post-elections, everybody is available for a price. Most of them, at least. The decisions are not being taken by caretakers. The caretakers have been propped up by Rawalpindi. The decisions are being taken by somebody. Just the other day, Imran Khan and his wife were convicted for 14 years. Now, anybody with even rudimentary knowledge of law would understand that Bushra Bibi had no cause to be convicted. She was not guilty of anything, but she was convicted. Why? Because it came out that Imran Khan was not worried about his sentence, he was worried about his family members. So they decided that, yes, now you should start hitting him where it pinches him the most. Then without either the Prime Minister or the Home Minister decided, it was decided that Banigala residence of Imran Khan will be converted into a jail. You can see the headlines. Neither the Interior Minister knew nor Prime Minister. Somebody decided that, yes, this will be the residence, this will become a jail. He went there. So obviously there are issues. On the security issues, when we talk of security issues, radicalization has risen, and I think this was a foregone conclusion. Today, a lot of people in India feel that with Taliban and Afghanistan, yes, it's a pinprick for Pakistan, it will create problems. But we need to understand that Taliban are an ideological beast. They don't compromise with their ideologies. The moment they consolidate, they will support all terrorists of all shades and hue, which actually come with similar orientation. Today it is Pakistan. Please remember, Taliban ever since coming to power have not handed over a single ETIM or TTP sympathizer to Pakistan or China. They have only relocated them. They will never do so as far as Lashkar-e-Toiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed is concerned. We have, of course, closed the embassy, waiting to hand them over to them. That's a different issue. On economy, we have, of course, various issues. As AVM said, that the rupee is 277. Remember, a few months back, it was 300 plus. Today, the foreign exchange reserves of Pakistan are in excess of $13 billion. That is as on 26 January. The State Bank of Pakistan has over $8 billion. They were supposed to pay $24.5 billion in this financial year, out of which they have managed to solve $14.5 billion. In next 6 months, they have to pay $10 billion, out of which $5 billion they are hoping to roll over, and $5 billion they expect to pay. The trade deficit has reduced by 39% in the first 7 months of this financial year. Pakistan's financial year, incidentally, is from July to June. So from July to January, 7 months, they have managed to reduce the trade deficit by 39%. The exports have risen by 16%. And imports have come down drastically. So I'm not trying to say that they are not on the right track, but in trying to do that, in trying to clamp up on the imports, of course, the revenues are also taking a beating. So Pakistan is in a problem, and if the elections do take place, we will have an interesting scenario. because the most popular politician and most popular political party is not being provided level playing field. Eventually, the next prime minister is already known. See, irrespective of the election result, I think it is well known in Pakistan and to everybody in the international community. BBC has already come up with an article saying Nawaz Sharif is set to become the prime minister for the next time. So we already have decided who is going to be the prime minister. Now, how it will pan out, how many independents will be cobbled together, how they will create a government is now for all of us to see. Though, at this point of time, a very, very important section of the so-called establishment does not want the elections. And the reason for that is very clear, because they feel that these steps which they are taking can never be taken by an elected government. And when I say these steps, there are 3 steps which are extremely unpopular and are being taken at this moment. Pushing out of so-called Afghan nationals, privatization of PIA, imposition of GST on retailers. Now, these issues are critical, but no elected government would be able to take them. I really don't know how it will work out, but we have seen that in recent past, of course, somebody else is going to speak on the external issues. Pakistan has had problems with every single de jure neighbor of its. Of course, it does have a de facto 4th neighbor, but all neighbors of its are having a problem with it. Thank you.
Okay, Alok, please have a seat. Just to put a question to you, all our prime ministers, starting, let's say, from Mr. Vajpayee, Dr. Manmohan Singh, PM Modi, they have taken steps to somehow dial down, the problems between India and Pakistan. However, none seem to have succeeded for the long run. Now, if Nawaz Sharif does come, or whoever comes, do you see a political breakthrough that may happen, say if Nawaz Sharif comes or anybody else? Your short answer, please.
See, I think every political leader in Pakistan realizes that long-term salvation for Pakistan lies in friendly relations with Pakistan. But please understand, the military establishment in Pakistan not only considers themselves as the guardians of its frontiers, but also its ideological guardians. And for them, lasting peace with India is a problem, because the population is inevitably going to ask in future, if we could live in peace with India, why Pakistan? Please understand, when MFN status was to be given to India, the ISPR, which has nothing to do with it, said that we have a viewpoint on MFN status to India. So that is the level. So unless, of course, the establishment realizes, and establishment at this point of times wants some rapprochement with India because they are feeling the pressure. But they only want a temporary rapprochement. They are not really willing to have a lasting rapprochement with India. So as far as that is concerned, we could see some positive developments. And I think we have to create stakeholders for peace. And one of the biggest instruments for that is trade. If we can actually have a trade, which in 2005 Pakistan was to actually take SAFTA forward by trading on negative list. Pakistan continued to trade on positive list. Of course, now we have total complete break. But the SAFTA was derailed only because of Pakistan. I was also in Kathmandu just a few days back, and somebody asked me this question: what happens to SARC? Because the perception in other neighbors is that we are the ones who are derailing SARC. I said, no. You see what was to be done. The roadmap to SAFTA was clearly given out. I had written an article in 2005 where I said roadmap to SAFTA. Pakistan was to start acting on trading on a negative list. It refused. And thereafter there was no point. If you have to go just through semantics without actually delivering on anything, that will not happen. So what we have to do is that peace can come in provided you have stakeholders. Though I personally feel lasting peace between a country formed on the basis of two-nation theory and a secular democratic republic is not feasible.
Thank you for your comments, Alok. And that brings us to the security problem of Pakistan. It's just not the eastern borders of Pakistan where they feel threatened. There are issues with Iran and Afghanistan on its western borders, and no better person than Mr. Devasher to please take on.
Thank you, Manmohan. Thank you very much. See, the Can you hear me? Okay. The problem about talking about the security situation in Pakistan is that you don't know where to begin and where to end. And the reason is that the security situation, in one word, is indeed grim due to the activities of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the Baloch militant groups, as well as the Islamic State. And I'll just quote some figures to bolster what I'm saying. And these are figures from Pakistani think tanks. Terrorist incidents in Pakistan increased by 70% in 2023. The average militant attacks per month rose from 32 in 2022 to 53 attacks per month in 2023. And in the first month of this year, 2024, there have been 90 attacks already in just 1 month. 1,500 people died due to terrorist incidents, including 532 security personnel. This includes the army, the police, and the paramilitary, which means about 44 security personnel were killed every month in 2023. Can you imagine the level of casualties and the hits being taken by Pakistan's security forces? So there is just no doubt that terrorism is back and back with a vengeance in Pakistan. And the fact that the terrorists, TTP or the Baloch, are targeting uniformed personnel shows not only their strength, it is also demoralizing to the security forces, and it is also demoralizing the civilian population who realize that perhaps the security forces are not able to provide them shelter. Now, I will focus my comments on Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Now, you would all recall that in August 2021, when the Taliban marched into Kabul, there was a lot of euphoria and backslapping in Pakistan because their covert policy of 20 years had succeeded. And that Taliban was back. And you would recall that Imran Khan even said that the Afghans have broken the shackles of slavery, or whatever that was supposed to mean. And the reason was that Pakistan felt, for the last 20 years, that with Taliban in Kabul, their security will be bolstered for at least 3 reasons. One, India will be out of Afghanistan. Second, the Taliban will recognize the Durand Line as the international border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And third, the Taliban would defang and restrict the TTP. 2 years later, Pakistan's policy is in tatters. None of these 3 objectives have been met. In fact, Pakistan's security has been compromised. India is back in Kabul. The Taliban have refused to recognize the Durand Line, saying that there is no line, there is no border, and this is a line that divides brothers. And most important, they refuse to defang the TTP. At best, they have facilitated talks between the TTP and the government. The talks broke down in November 22, and the TTP has been on a rampage. Now, this is a very surprising result because by 2020, the TTP had been degraded by the Pakistan Army's Zarb-e-Azb exercise. And they had shifted to Afghanistan, sought sanctuary over there. The number of attacks had come down. They were not able to generate enough finances. But since then, they have reinvented themselves. And from a ragtag force, they have become a very serious and a major insurgency inside Pakistan. Several reasons for this. First, when the Americans left and the Taliban came, it was a TTP that benefited largely because a lot of their fighters were released from jails. So they got a huge injection of strength. Second, during the ceasefire talks with Pakistan, they were able to reorganize themselves and move into areas like Swat, which the Pakistan government itself allowed them to do. Under the new Amir, Noor Wali Masood, who took over in 2018, they have managed to reunify a lot of splinter groups. About 20 splinter groups have either rejoined the TTP or have become their affiliates. The TTP has also set up tactical alliance with some of the Baloch groups, which has allowed them space into areas where they were never there before, Baloch areas like Makaran and Kalat, and in turn the Baloch are getting sophisticated weaponry that the Americans had left behind. It has worked out mutually. The TTP has a very sophisticated propaganda and information war system, including a podcast, and they're reaching out to the people on the basis of exploitation of their rights, both of the Baloch and of the Pashtuns. They have also set up an administrative structure in which there was 12 shadow provinces have been set up, 7 in KPK, 2 in Punjab, 2 in Balochistan, and 1 in Gilgit-Baltistan. So for all these reasons, the TTP has become very, very powerful and now is spreading its tentacles. For Pakistan, the options are not easy. They can't directly target the TTP inside Pakistan because that would lead to casualties, civilian casualties. People are not willing to move out anymore. And without the US drone strikes that had taken out bulk of the TTP leadership earlier during Operation Zarb-e-Azb, it will not be successful. They can't enter, if they enter Afghanistan, which is something which is being talked about, they will meet Taliban resistance. There will be a war of attrition, including increased terrorism in Pakistan and the use of suicide bombing. So what Pakistan has done is trying to influence the Taliban indirectly to act against the TTP. They have pushed back, as Alok mentioned, 1.7 million undocumented Afghans back to Afghanistan. Some of them had been in Pakistan for the last 40 years. This is imposing a huge strain for the Taliban because there's already hunger and malnutrition. But if Pakistan thinks that they can pressurize the Taliban in this manner, it won't happen because as a very intelligent ISI chief of Pakistan said, when was the last time that the Afghans succumbed to pressure? So it's not going to work. And it's going to go, the situation is going to go worse. So to conclude, Pakistan is faced with a grim situation from both of the Taliban, who are challenging Pakistan's sovereignty by not recognizing the Durand Line, and by the TTP, who are wanting the demerger of KPK and the erstwhile what's called FATA. So there is almost like a Pashtun pincer from both sides of the Durand Line. And if Pakistan does not handle this matter imaginatively, they are going to find that the western borderlands, which are already disturbed, are going to get even more disturbed and lead to greater insecurity and instability in Pakistan. So I'll stop here.
Thank you. Which brings me to a question, Mr. Devasher, regarding could they divert attention, do something more or increase the interference within India? And the second part is the recent, Iran-Pakistan friendly strikes across each other. I mean, these strikes don't happen without thinking. Air strikes, drone strikes. So what exactly was the message being conveyed by Iran when they did this? Actually, they led with it. And then suddenly they become friends again.
So, your first point about whether Pakistan would divert attention. See, that has been Pakistan's template for a long time. That whenever you have a domestic issue, you externalize it, and India is the favorite. But I think since 2016, when there was retaliation on Uri and thereafter after Pulwama, Pakistan will think very deep and very hard on this because they know that India will react and react very ferociously if they try something. And they do not have the bandwidth, economic bandwidth anymore to be able to take on India at this stage. So that possibility certainly exists, but I don't see Pakistan exercising that option at this stage. Their worry really is, the very curious dynamic at play. Many of the Taliban fighters who were trained for Shahadat and Jihad are now getting bored and frustrated because of peace in Afghanistan. Because many of them have been diverted to police duties or to manning checkposts. And as a result, there are reports of many Taliban cadres joining the TTP. If you recall, there was an attack on Chitral in September, and that was led mostly by the frustrated Taliban who are looking for Jannat, they're looking for to get purified, as it were. So that is one on that. On Pak-Iran, you see, I think the message being conveyed by Iran was something different. Jaish-e-Adal had definitely irked them because in December they had carried out an attack on a police post where 11 people had died. So they wanted to convey that message. But the message also was to other countries, especially the US and Israel, that if you try anything, we are going to hit you back. And we are going to hit Pakistan, just as a demonstration of a message. There have been strikes between Pakistan and Iran earlier also. The first was in 2013, when they had fired missiles also into Pakistan, but this was always kept below the threshold. This time Iran went all out to make the thing. Pakistan had no option but to retaliate. You see, if Pakistan did not retaliate, then the message to India would be what? The message to the world, that the Islamic world's only nuclear country is too weak to protect its sovereignty. So therefore, they had to go in for an attack, but then they both withdrew from the brink. And despite the messaging, the tragedy is the people who were killed on both sides were the Baloch. Poor Baloch, if you saw the visuals, living in mud huts. They're the guys who got killed on both sides of the border. So that is what the signaling was. So I think it was basically a signaling match, both by Pakistan and by Iran.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the insight. Then there is this factor of Pakistan's friendship with the West Asian world, Saudis, and eternal friendship, shall I say, or interaction, not friendship, with the United States. So what are the external dynamics when we talk of diplomacy? So may I request Shalini to please take on.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible? Yeah. We have gone into details of what's happening inside Pakistan on the security dynamics, and what we have seen in the last 4 or 5 years, that Pakistan's strategic relevance has gone down. The relevance that it has been used to enjoying it because of its geopolitical location, because it became the frontline country for United States. So it had created this narrative around it that it's a country which is too dangerous to fail. And that narrative did not seem to be fetching the dividends which Pakistan has been used to. The decline in the strategic relevance has been because of the US withdrawal from Afghanistan, US focus now on the Indo-Pacific strategy, where Pakistan does not find a mention, and also Pakistan's continued internal instability. And then now what we see within Pakistan, with Asim Munir coming up, taking over, that there is this whole urge to now regain the strategic relevance, to revive its strategic relevance. And external dynamics are very critical in terms of reviving its strategic, relevance. So if we see the major players, who are the major players? You have United States there, where Pakistan has been very keen to, rebuild its relationship, because US remains important for Pakistan because of the trade, because of IMF, it's the route to IMF, and also investments. So they definitely need United States on their side, and also it's good for their image. But what we see in the US right now, that they are not they are taking a little neutral stand for Pakistan. So the relationship is not as close as post 9/11, and it's not to the lows of, say, 1990s. But Pakistan, what we see, is very, very keen. Asim Munir visited United States. They want to revive the security dimension back into the relationship, and that's been Pakistan's effort right now. With China is an indispensable partner for Pakistan. Pakistan realizes that there might be some issues here and there in terms of the security dynamics and CPEC projects not going well, but that doesn't change the bottom line dynamics of that relationship. We have to remember that, so that relationship very much stays. And even now, when Pakistan's economy was at the, it was as low and it was on the verge of, say, becoming bankrupt, Chinese assistant did play a very, very critical role. So that will definitely, that's going to stay. We have seen the projection of that alliance will be much more now. The Chinese have they talked about Pakistan getting J-31s from China, J-10s are already there. And we will see Pakistan leveraging from the muscularity of China's global positions and Chinese diplomatic support, which has been very, very critical in the last, say, 4 to 5 years, is going to be very much there. So that support stays for Pakistan. In terms of its relationship with the Gulf, I think there Pakistan is working very hard. And we also see that partnership there, because what Pakistan is also projecting itself, that it is important because it has the counter-terrorism capability, capabilities, it has the intelligence, which it is trying to kind of project at all these partners that why it is a critical stage. So we see that with the Gulf, the relationship is somewhat, on the improvement after Imran Khan's exit. They've signed the free trade agreement with the GCC. Saudi Arabia, they've conducted the military exercises. Economic, assistance coming at the time of crisis was important, but now UAE has apparently promised $25 billion and Kuwait has promised $5 billion. I mean, when it will come, we don't know, because these kind of announcements we have heard before also, and nothing much has happened. But yes, we do see those statements coming out, and we do see that support that Pakistan is trying to fetch from the Gulf, and that's going to continue. And with Nawaz Sharif coming into power, that is also one of the factors that they see why what Nawaz will bring to the table is maybe, bringing more Saudi support, because he does share a good relationship with the Saudis. So that relationship stands there in terms of West Asia. So I think these are the areas where Pakistan is kind of building up its relationship. Another area, sir, I think very important is Central Asia and Russia. Now, Russia, even though Pakistan wants to, seek opportunities, there are limited areas right now, as the position stands now. But with Central Asia, definitely Pakistan wants to create its space. It wants to seek utilize the opportunities with the presence of Russia and China there. So we have seen how the connectivity projects it has been emphasizing recently. Like 2 months back, a cargo from Pakistan went to Kyrgyzstan via China. So that route has been explored. So I think Central Asia will be one of the areas for Pakistan where we will see that emphasis, and also try to kind of build up its relationship in our neighborhood. Military diplomacy is one area where we see they're trying to make inroads with Nepal and Sri Lanka, and Maldives could be essential area for them to kind of now leverage the ideological orientation in their favor. So these would be like the external areas where I see Pakistan taking, these steps. Your question that you posed about what did I feel in terms of the South Asian scholars, so I had some interaction with some of the Pakistanis which were there. I sensed a lot of anxiety and curiosity about India in them. And there is a deep realization that the gap between two countries is now too much for them to even come close to India. But then now, how do you build up that gap? How do you bridge that gap? So only option I think Pakistan sees in their mind is to now rely on narratives. The narratives about India's ideology and how India is going, how India is a threat to Pakistan. So that's the emphasis I saw there. But certainly a tremendous anxiety in terms of what's going to happen in the next 5 years with the likelihood of the same government, which they feel has been a very, very strong position against them and has given a very strong message, as Mr. Devasher also said. Thank you.
Yeah, before I continue, we will leave some 15 minutes for Q&As, so we can have the mics. Okay, I have a question to all three of you. Recently there have been a lot of writings in the Pakistani press, including one famous article, I think it came in the Friday Times, was it? Or maybe the Tribune Pakistan, by a Vice Marshal of the Pakistan Air Force, where he actually said and wrote that, the realities have changed, and it is better that we in Pakistan, that they in Pakistan realize and realize that, as what Shalini says, there is a big gap that's developed. And hence, the issue of Kashmir being the centerpiece of all their activities vis-a-vis India needs to change. And it was very brave on his part to have written this. It's on the press, you can Google that. So with the writings in Pakistan which are happening, your views on this, about the internal feelings, if you have any insight, of attitude towards India.
Yes, I think... Hello? Yes, I think you're right. That is AVM Shehzad Chaudhary. The writing is not only of him, but a couple of other people also who have been writing that Pakistan cannot continue its, hostility towards India and harming itself. So there has to be some, and a lot of people are also making the argument that, India being bigger should make some kind of a move, some face saving, so that Pakistan can withdraw from the positions that it has taken, that there can be no forward movement till the changes of 5th August 2019 are changed. So that sentiment is definitely there. Even if you watch the various TV talk shows, the so-called vloggers and podcasts, a lot of them are also saying the same thing. But there's always a rider, and the third thing, even if they interview the people on the street, many of them say the same thing: India kahan pahunch gaya, we are nowhere, things like that. But there always are riders. On Kashmir, many people have an ambivalent attitude that should, because if you've been brought up on the diet, the staple diet on Kashmir Banega Pakistan for the last 70 years, it's very difficult to change in so short a period. It'll be very, very difficult. So that is one. The second is what they talk about the treatment of Muslims in India. A lot of it is all imagined, it's all cooked up, but they like to feel good by the narrative that Muslims in India are being ill-treated. Hum to yahan baithe, hum to chalo is hisab se to theek hain. That Muslim. But when they look around themselves, there are more Muslims killing more Muslims in Pakistan than anywhere else in the world. It's the Muslims who are killing the Muslims in Pakistan. But they don't think these things through. So right now I think Pakistan is in a very ambivalent position. Their economic downturn, their political infighting, and the weakness of the military has made them realize that they are sitting in an environment where India has a strong political leadership, it's stable, economy is now the 5th largest, on its way becoming the 3rd largest, and a very strong military. So, so it's very ambivalent. They want to do it, but they want India to make the first step. So I think the debate, the churning is going on in Pakistan.
Alok?
What I wanted to say was that yes, there is a realization, and for 2 or 3 reasons. Firstly, economy, which they realize. I think India has grown as an economic power. More importantly, they also find that some of its friends who were traditionally with close, like especially the Gulf states, have actually grown very close to India. In fact, what happened when UAE ruler came to India, all these are shown in a very big way. The way Smriti Irani went to Medina was front place news, because that showed the amount of accommodation that the Saudi regime was doing. And that sets a sense of demoralization, because a state created on the basis of religion always took credence from the fact that the custodian of 2 holy mosques is with us and all those things. So this is creating a feeling that yes, you need to compromise. Shehzad is not the first person. There are so many people who have been saying this for a number of times. Even Asif Ali Zardari had said that Kashmir could be left for future generations, if you remember. But the point is, what could be the compromise? Please understand, India's position on Kashmir has also changed based on our intrinsic strength. Today, do you think Indian population will accept LOC as international border? Not to my mind. What Indira Gandhi expected in Shimla is unacceptable today. Today the regime will find it extremely difficult to even sell any compromise to Indian population. So that sort of a compromise that you're looking for, I think now does not exist on the horizon. So it has to be, and that is where the problem is.
Yeah, I know. Things change with time and the environment, which you rightly brought out. Shalini, would you like to add something? And after that, we will take questions from the audience.
Just a minute to add to what Mr. Devasher said and Alok also said about the fact that there is a realization we have been hearing from all of them. There is a realization, but there are 2 factors, I think here, 3 factors rather. One is that, the ability to now for them to make that change internally and do the right things. I think the structure just doesn't allow it. And right now what we see after all this crisis, military has gained a very, very strong footing. So definitely not at all possible for them to so-called move on a welfare state path. A second part is that what I think Alok mentioned in his initial, remarks, that the lobbies within Pakistan, will they want this peace now? And especially the military. What is the military there for? Where is the aura there if there is peace with India? So how far they can go in terms of taking any initiatives and then implementing them? And I think, sir, third factor is also China. Because Chinese whole assistance and their patronage to Pakistan is also very critical factor is around their common hostility to India. So how far can actually Pakistan go ahead with this is something which is, they are in a catch-22 situation right now.
Okay, go ahead. You want to say something?
Just wanted to say this Chinese aid to Pakistan is, I think, overblown. You look at FDI from China and Pakistan, it's actually come down. So I think Chinese support to Pakistan is more psychological than real. Actually, China has put Pakistan into a big debt trap. The rollover of the loan also is not as substantive as in the case of UAE and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, okay. I have a slightly divergent view to that, but I will leave it for the present. Any questions, please, from the audience? Please feel free. Yes, sir. The mic, please.
Mr. Devasher, you made a very compelling point on all those statistics. The question is, why don't we put this out? Particularly the fact that more Muslims are killed by Muslims in Pakistan than anywhere else in the world. Where are we lacking in the narrative part of our relationship with Pakistan?
I agree with you. There is some activity on social media, but in terms of putting out a structured strategic communication effort, I think that's one of been the weak spots of of us. This has been a weak spot, that we are not able to put out, even though you have a compelling narrative, you have a narrative based on facts, you are not being able to push it out to catch the attention of the world. It is a weakness, and hopefully people will be working on it. There's a lot of now young people who have come onto the scene on their own, through podcasts, through social media, through Twitter, and through Instagram and things. They are pushing this out a lot. But in terms of a structured thing, the whole of government, it's lacking. I agree with you.
Any other questions at the back? Yes, sir.
Morning to you, sir. Sir, this question is for you, sir. Basically, what we have been studying about Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is that it is actually capturing ground against the Pakistan army, sir. In Herat, it has done that, sir, in which the Pakistan army took 2 days to take them out, sir.
In Herat?
Correction, in Chirat. Chirat.
Chitral.
Yes, sir.
Chitral, you mean?
Chitral, sir. So actually, it's capturing ground and fighting the Pakistan army. So how do we see in the next 6 months or 1 year, what would be this thing? Because we know that it is Mr. Noor Wali Masood is actually going the better way of having the political vilayats first and then countering the Pakistan army. So what are your views on the next 6 months now?
Yeah, so I agree with you that Chitral was a surprise, that for the first time, so many people were mobilized to attack a remote post. In fact, it was almost like a Kargil in reverse. That area had been, Pakistan army had withdrawn, and they held it for 2 days. You see, for the Pakistan army, it is easier to attack in case the TTP declares a particular area as a free area or a Taliban state. It's easy for the Pakistan army to go and use everything, all their entire armory of, whether it's air power, artillery, or whatever. I don't see the TTP using that right now in the stage they are in. They have become certainly a strong insurgency, but holding on to territory, I think, will be a further step. But ultimately, they will do that. They will have longer attacks, longer hostages, more Fedayeen attacks, more sort of people who are willing to die, but hold on. See, like what the Baloch did in Mach just 3-4 days ago. They held on to the town for 2 days. They were patrolling the town, and then they withdrew. Basically, again, demonstrating that they have the power and the capability. But I think the TTP will go about it a little bit more slower manner. But ultimately, objective is that.
Yes, sir. I'll come to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to all of you. Is it right to say or to assume that it's in China's interest to leave Pakistan in a state where it is weak and vulnerable, so it can be manipulated the way where it suits the Chinese interests? Now, when we talk in terms of a change of heart, slowly but surely, saying that enmity with India is no longer in our interest, and therefore we need to sort of soften our stand, maybe on Kashmir, maybe on, on various issues concerning India. Would the Chinese like that kind of a change to come about, and would they do everything in their power to make it's so easy for the Chinese to manipulate Pakistan as it seems, in terms of economic support, in terms of political support, in terms of hardware, anything and everything. Just your views.
So, thank you, sir. So first, I'll just give a very quick, comment for Alok. You are absolutely right that this is because of the Chinese, the debt trap, and Chinese, wherever they enter, they do this. Sri Lanka, we see Bangladesh coming on the, doors of IMF because of that. But whatever you say, it was the Chinese rollover which kind of brought them into some kind of, stability. Even the IMF was not ready to issue the loans without these rollover commitments which they had. So I think that support is definitely critical. It's actually benefiting them or not is definitely debatable. Sir, on your question about, I think it's not change of heart, it's compulsion for Pakistan to think that way. I don't think they can ever have a change of heart, because I think that's very much in the DNA and that will exist. Chinese, you are maybe to some extent right, sir, that the Chinese engagement is the nature of the engagement is such that it has made a militarily Pakistan very, very strong. So it's a low-cost option for China to put them against India and keep you kind of, keep pricking you. But then overall the state is not strong enough to kind of move away from China. And now the moving away from China, the question doesn't arise because the entire military equipment is 70 to 80% is Chinese. So Chinese would rather enjoy that factor of, having they themselves have an NFU, but they really kind of encourage the first use and then brickmanship from Pakistan. So this kind of combination suits the Chinese interest, absolutely, and I think this will continue.
Alok, you want a short one, because we've got two more questions there.
I just wanted to say, sir, this is a very interesting question which you asked. Having been to both China and Pakistan a number of times and having interacted with them. Yeah. So, as far as China is concerned, I think they are more worried about instability, because what has happened is that all groups in Pakistan that are fighting the Pakistani government have realized that you kill 100 Pakistanis doesn't affect the Pakistani establishment. But you kill one Chinese, the Pakistani establishment sits up and takes up. As a result, TTP is targeting Chinese nationals. Baloch are targeting Chinese nationals. In fact, 2008, provisional government of Balochistan came up with a state. All Chinese personnel, Chinese equipment, Chinese companies are valid targets. 2013, Sindhi nationalists came out with a statement, all Chinese companies are valid targets. So from Chinese point of view, instability in Pakistan is not suiting them. In fact, stability, they want stability. In fact, today, the support for China is so all-pervasive as far as common man in Pakistan is concerned, that a stable government in Pakistan which is democratic cannot go against Pakistan. In fact, if you remember, the last government was so despite Imran Khan having so many reservations against Chinese CPAC, it was so pro-Chinese that General Bajwa had to make a statement saying that China is good, but all our exports are going to US. Please understand, while equipment might be coming from China, the military elite has their children in United States, and that gives them enormous leverage. The entire Pakistani elite has children living in the West. So the moment you stop visas, they are the ones who are directly affected. And that is a leverage which West has, which will be very difficult to overcome.
But sir,
Yeah,
can I
just-
just give a quick comment?
Yeah, please.
So, but that question, I think that is a debate which is there. But Pakistan has managed these two relationships very, very well simultaneously, and that's the narrative game that they've played with the West. And how far that narrative game will now play, I think that narrative game is somewhat not fetching the same dividend as it fetched them for the last 5 decades.
Okay, I think we'll take two questions. We'll take two questions at one time, and I will come to you, the Sikh officer there. Yes, please. Yes, the lady here. Okay, he's got the mic. Please bring the mic. If you can please keep your questions short. We hardly have any time now.
Thank you. The question is again on China and Pakistan, because if Pakistan does fall into the debt trap, which has been created by China, there's going to be more instability, and more instability means more terrorism. So how big is that threat for India?
Okay, yeah. The second question from you, sir.
Thank you so much. Fascinating discussion. It's really interesting because with our focus on our eastern neighbor, it sometimes feels like our western adversary we've forgotten about. But I think your question or your comment, sir, was very interesting. In a lot of my conversations with Western counterparts, Western friends, I've always asked them the same question, and maybe my innocence, that why don't they create a PGM version of sanctions? And what I mean by that is Pakistan is unique that there are a handful of families, business and in the military, which control the country. All their children are either studying abroad or aspiring to do so. If they just target that, you will see a changed behavior, and I don't get a sensible response back to why not.
Okay, we'll take the third question also. The Sikh gentleman. Yes, please.
Okay, sir, Jayant, my question
A
is
little
that-
louder, please.
My question is very absolutely basic. Pakistan is controlled by the army, armed forces. How to tackle these armed forces? You see anything, they have a nuclear arsenal under them, which is again supervised by the Americans and the Saudi Arabian, being a Sunni state. So unless until the Pakistan army is tackled, which is controlled by the Americans, whether you say that your children are studying there, they have got a properties there, these are immaterial things. China has got its own problem. It will remain. Gwadar is still the long post, but
Okay.
they will still not venture it out.
All right, we got the issue.
I will just give you one more thing input. In one of the talk show, one of the CIA officers said, when the person asked him a question, you are giving so much of technology to Chinese, sophisticated, how you are going to handle it, and they will use it against, or they have been using it against Americans also. How are you going to tackle it? He said, don't worry. We have planned for 50 years. We know how to tackle the China in another 20 years or 50 years.
Okay.
Our things are worked out.
Right. Thank you. I think we'll have to close the questions. All right, Air Marshal Chaudhary, the last one.
Yeah, fascinating. I couldn't
A short one, dear.
help but ask this question. Post Doklam and Galwan, that's the time China realized the deficiency of air power in TAR and has accelerated its infrastructure and force deployment there. And given their huge and deep engagement with Pakistan, both militarily from the defense industry perspective, aviation industry, as well as the fact that extensive exercises, Shaheen 10 has just been concluded. Pakistani Air Force provides an opportune moment for China to fill the deficiency of its asymmetric threat in that region. How do you see this playing out in the future?
Okay, I'll just start with two of the questions. See, the point is, first of all, never underestimate your adversary. Okay, intentions can change overnight. So the amount of pressures that, the basic question is, will China leverage the leverage it has with Pakistan to make sure that it stays a threat, that Pakistan stays a threat to India, so that to keep us occupied. That basically is the thrust of the questions. The fact is, my personal feeling is, I think it will maintain that because of to keep our armed forces and our energies utilized, engaged on our western borders. If we had a free western border, you can well imagine the threat that will be posed to China on the northern front. That's on the two parts. And regarding the Pakistan Air Force feeling as a filler, it's a potent Air Force, as we all understand and we all acknowledge. And I personally feel that more than that is the fact that the flow of expertise, that goes into the PLA Air Force with these exercises, that should be bothering us. The tactics that flow into the PLA Air Force, which earlier was on the Russian ethos, but no longer is, if it is already there. The other two issues? Yeah, please.
Just one, I would like to respond to the gentleman's question about why can't we kind of US put pressure on those families there. You know, it's very interesting that US also wants to keep Pakistan warm. They will never pull, they know that these levers can be pulled, but they'd realize the utility of Pakistan's intelligence cooperation when they need to use it. And we have seen that example that in the killing of Zawahiri. So they want to keep Pakistan on their side to the extent that whenever they need it, they can do it. So fully they will never pull those triggers, you know. And also for us, you know, keeping Pakistan warm on US side, they also kind of give a messaging to us on certain areas. So I mean, I think that game US will continue to play, a little balanced relationship with Pakistan.
Can I?
Yeah, just 30 seconds. Sir. We will take the...
We all have to live with it, Pakistan,
okay, sir.
as it is.
Right, sir.
So just to go back on this Pak China thing, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I think that Pakistan is a dilemma for China too. So long as China was supporting Pakistan politically and militarily as a counter to India, everything was hunky-dory. When they tried to broad-base the relationship into economy, into this the CPEC and bailing them out and things, suddenly the CPEC has plateaued. China realizes that Pakistan is not in a position to either absorb or repay. And third, China doesn't want to be stuck holding the Pakistan baby. They don't want to do the heavy lifting, which the US was doing earlier. So they don't mind some sort of a modus vivendi with India, so that this kind of sinking ship of Pakistan is not left for them to bail out alone. So it is a dilemma of China too.
Just 30 seconds, Alok.
I was in Sichuan, Chengdu, which deals with this part as far as China is concerned, in a seminar. And let me... The Chinese viewpoint vis-a-vis India is very clear. What are Chinese objectives vis-a-vis India? There are two folds. One is that India should not become an ally of the US. That's the primary objective, and to that extent, they don't want to antagonize you to that level at this juncture. And the second is that India should not rise to be a challenger to China on the global stage. Now, within China, at this point of time, in that seminar, you could see, there are people who believe that India has already become an ally of the US. So now there is no point engaging with India. There is another group which says, no, India will always have its strategic autonomy and it makes sense to engage with China. Now, to meet these twin contradictory objectives, what China would like to do is that it likes to engage with your neighbors so that they remain a pinprick and keep you confined to the South Asia. And it is in that context, as I have always said, that in today's context, if you have a conflict with China, Pakistan is 100% going to enter the conflict. But if you have a conflict with Pakistan, China will at best indulge in verbal aggression. That's what my belief is.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, we can continue. I can see a few more hands at the back, but sorry, we are up for time. Thank you very much for your attention, and may I request you all to join in appreciation of these three wonderful panelists here.
Thank you all for this interactive session. May I now request Dr. Arvind Gupta and Mr. Rajan Arya to kindly come up on stage to felicitate the panelists. Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur. Mr. Tilak Devasher. Captain Alok Bansal, Indian Navy. Dr. Shalini Chawla. Thank you all. The book called Pakistan Insights 2023, edited by Mr. Tilak Devasher, promises to be a very intriguing insight on Pakistan. I would request Dr. Arvind Gupta, Mr. Tilak Devasher, Dr. Shalini Chawla, and Mr. Rajan Arya to kindly unveil the book.